In today's video, we're going to talk about small date coins. We're going to talk about the 1960 Philadelphia and Denver small date, the 1970 S regular strike small date cent, and the 1982 small date cent minted from both Philadelphia and Denver. Hey everyone, it's Rob with RobFindsTreasure, and I get asked quite a bit during my streams and in my comment section of my YouTube videos about teaching a little bit more about some of the coins that you can find or some of the varieties that are out there. So for today's video, I figured I would focus mainly on small date coins. Now there are a lot of different denominations that do have variations in either the mint mark or the way that the coin was designed. But for today's video, we're going to focus mainly on three different Lincoln Memorial cents. The 1960, either a Philadelphia or a Denver mint, the 1970 San Francisco regular business strike cent, and then of course the 1982 Philadelphia and Denver Lincoln Memorial cents as well. Now I do want to point out that I'm not going to get into the specifics on the value of the coins today. We're just going to talk about how you differentiate between them. So kicking it off, we're going to kick it off with the 1960 small date cent. You'll notice by the image down here that I have a couple of different ones brought up. Now I have the Denver mint shown because this picture is one of the better pictures that I have available, but it can be in both Philadelphia or Denver. So on this example, the top example right here, this is going to be a small date. The bottom example is a large date. And just by the name itself, you can see the difference. See how the 6 looks smaller on the small date than it does on the large date? But I'm going to get more into some diagnostics that can help you identify when you're looking at your coins, which ones you have. So on the 1960 small dates, you'll notice that the gap between the top of the curl and the inside loop is a lot smaller right here than if you go to the large date. You have a lot more pronounced of a gap here between the curl and the hook of the 6. So that's the number one thing you can tell. It's pretty basic once you see them. You can see them with the naked eye, but if you just focus on the shape of the 6 mostly, that will help you a lot. Now, obviously, there's some small differences on the 9 as well. You have a much bigger inner circle here versus a smaller one here. And on a lot of the small dates, you will see some of this machine doubling that is associated with the inside of the 6 right here and the top part of the 9 right there. Bottom line is, when you look at the 1960 Lincoln Memorial cents, you do want to focus mostly on the size of this loop and the distance between the top curl and the loop in the 6. So now that we went ahead and talked about the 1960 Philadelphia or Denver small date Lincoln Memorial cent, I do want to bring up the next one I want to talk about, which is the 1970 S business strike, not the proof strike, the regular business strike small date cent as well. It's one of the hardest ones for people to identify because it's hard to see with the naked eye, and if you don't have a trained eye, it's almost impossible. But one of the biggest things you can look for is making sure that the hook of the 9, you can see how pronounced it is, how detailed and how strong of a strike it is right there. On the small date, it's very weak struck. Very weak struck. There's not a lot of detail. It almost looks like the 9 has been smashed or compressed. You can see that it's more flat oval-like instead of circular. So you want to look at that as well. But also, you can tell by the base of the 7. If you look at the large date, there is no definition here. It kind of hooks in, whereas on the small date, it's more pronounced. Also, on the small date, the top of the 9, the 7, and the 0 line up, whereas on the large date, there is a small gap here that you can see, and it also extends below the base of the 0. So it's all even on the small date. It's not even on the large date. This is a tough one to differentiate because of how similar it looks from the small and large date to the naked eye. But like I said, if you pay attention to the 9 here, as well as the distance between the top of the 9 and 0 to the 7, and the base of the 7, you'll be able to see it. I also want to point out, and I don't have an image, that you can take a look at the TY in Liberty and the TY in Liberty on a true small date, one that you have that's an almoster or very questionable. You can take a look at the TY. The TY is also weakly struck in Liberty on the small date, where it's a definite good strike on the large date. This one's a tough one to find. It does have value just like the 60 small date Philadelphia does, but again, I have never found one. That's why I'm using images of these. I just want to make sure that you guys are familiar with how to identify it and look for it in your hunts. If you find one, feel free to shoot me an email and show me a picture. I'd be happy to take a look at it for you because I'd love to see one in the wild. All right, we're on the final small date coin that we're going to talk about in today's video, the 1982 small date. Now, in 1982, the small date, you can find it in both the Philadelphia and the Denver Mint. They had several different designs that year. They had the large date, the small date, they had copper cents, they had zinc cents, and if you can find a 1982D small date in copper, that's the only one they didn't make available in a regular issue. Of course, a couple have been found and they're worth quite a bit. But we'll get into that in another video. I just want to talk about the differences between the large date and small date. This one is naked eye visible. Now, I get asked a lot during my videos, how do you tell the difference? We're going to show you right now. The large date's pretty basic. You can see right here that this 2 is really at about a 45-degree angle, and it's really flat down here at the bottom. You can very easily see a large date in almost all of the ones you find. It's the most common. The small date, you can see it has more of a hook here, how it's kind of been pulled out. Picture the 2 at the base kind of just being pulled away. And if you look, there is more of a little hook here compared to it being straight down. That's the number one identifier. Also, you'll be able to see that this strike is a little thinner than it is on the thicker large date. Now, people still have a hard time differentiating with these, even though you can see it in this picture, the difference with the naked eye. That's why I do recommend having a loop or a coin microscope. Those things come in really handy, but once you get used to seeing them, you'll be able to tell right away which one it is. Now, I made mention about the copper cents. Remember, Philadelphia and Denver both made large and small dates. So you have 4 different styles there. You have a Philadelphia small date and a large date, and you have a Philadelphia small date and large date copper. So they made them both copper and zinc. So Philadelphia actually made 4 different strikes that year. Denver made both large and small dates in zinc, and they made large dates in copper. They did not make small date Denvers in copper, or at least they weren't supposed to. So there is 7 different strikes from 2 different mints that year, although an 8th one, like I said, the 82D small date copper has been found. I'm still on the lookout for that. That's why I weigh up all of my 1982D small date cents to see if they're zinc or copper. And as a quick reminder, zinc cents weigh 2.5 grams and copper cents weigh 3.1. And there is about a 0.1 variance for planchet flaws and lighter planchets, so they can weigh a little bit different than that. But if you have a 1982D small date cent and you weigh it and it weighs anything north of 3 grams, you got a dandy. Just wanted to make sure you knew the difference between the 1960 P&D large and small date, the 1970S large and small date, and the 82 P&D large and small date. I said I wouldn't talk a lot about values, but I do want to point out that in 1960, the Denver minted small date is not valuable. It's pretty common. Matter of fact, estimates put that they made just as many small date Denver cents as they made 1960 large dates. The 1960 Philadelphia small date does have some additional value, and that's the one that you want to look for more than the other. In 1970, the small date is a tough find. It does have a little more value, not a lot unless it's in high grades. But in 1982, there is no value difference in those 7 coins we talked about unless you find the 1982D small date copper cent. Then there's value. Anyway, if you're looking to fill coins in your album, hopefully this tutorial or this beginning introduction to small date cents helps. If you guys want to see more videos like this, please feel free to hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell notifications. That way you can be alerted when I have more educational videos. And like I said, if you did enjoy this type of video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. And as always, everyone, happy hunting and thanks for watching.